Yeah. Long may it continue to be the case.
God, it's gross. All right.
All right.
Oh, we're back.
I think
Dan,
yeah.
hopefully I'm in.
I can see the levels going.
Yeah,
I
they
can
look
monitor it
okay.
myself. Look at it.
This might
Nope.
actually just stress me out more.
Okay.
We'll see. We're back on the couch, Dan.
We are back on the couch once again,
Back on the couch. It's
showing
actually
our faces
daytime.
to the people.
Showing our faces, our portly faces. It's actually daytime here today, so it should have a bit more light than last time. And look at us. We're back after another week. I wanted to have like a current events thing to start us off with, but the only thing I could think of was like, oh, Manchester United just they just sacked their manager, and I don't really care about that. I don't really know.
I don't know who their manager has been.
Some guy
who
named
their manager
Ole.
will be. What's it?
Ollie?
Ollie.
Ole?
Ole.
Ole? I don't know. Fucking
No,
cares.
okay. This is how it...
Soul Scare.
Yeah, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer.
There you go.
Yeah, something like
It's
that.
current events, folks.
He used to play for them, I think.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Hopefully he was good.
He was in like the 1999 team that won all the
things.
All the things.
Oh, that's nice. That's good for them.
That's the last time I was like had any current knowledge about football.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like he was a pretty bad manager.
Okay. Oh, well,
From
they've just
someone who
gotten
knows
rid of
nothing
him.
about
and they're
it.
going to get somebody else.
They got rid of him.
I don't know. I blame the Glaciers.
The Glaciers?
Yeah. Manchester United, not the Glaciers. The Glaziers.
The Glaciers. Boy, I shouldn't have brought this up. I have no idea. No idea about any of this.
I don't know. That's probably like a 2008 reference.
Oh, okay.
No, I think they took over Manchester United in like 2004, and I think they still do.
Okay.
Anyway.
Well, they told me, folks,
Americans in British sports, get them out.
Yeah, they told me that soccer was the world sport, so I wanted to throw everybody a bone. All right. What are we doing today? I don't think we really know.
No.
Ostensibly, we were like, maybe we bring up some ideas we've come across in the past in some of our readings that we wanted to like go back over and kind of like re-come across and like see where our thinking had evolved since we came across those ideas. I started to do that and then did something completely different.
Okay.
So I don't know what you did, but if you'd like to go first, by all means.
Well, no, I think my plan has materialized in the last 30 seconds. So
Okay.
we'll find
Same, oh God.
I think we decided what this was going to be was we would do a little bit of an addendum follow-up to our most recent episode, or perhaps more broadly to the reading of Mike McNair's Revolutionary Strategy in general. One of the things that I got from that last series of chapters from the book, but which we didn't really talk about in the most recent episode, was his discussion of party states and what a party state is. And he basically just says that all states are party states.
Sure.
They all have a collection of ruling ideas, and they all exclude some other set of ideas that aren't compatible or conducive to the ruling ideas. And he says that the USSR was a particularly peculiar type of party state, or a specific type of party state, because of those features that we talked about in the chapter, in the last episode rather, about how the ban on factions within the Communist Party and how the reliance on bureaucratic or Bonapartist centralism as the running of the party made it a party which had only one faction within it, kind of thing. But basically he says that like all post-revolutionary states exclude some collection of ideas and champion the revolutionary ones, and it's almost inevitable that the Revolutionary Party, the collection of people and agencies which execute a revolution, will splinter into factions, and they become what we colloquially understand to be parties in a sort of like normative political sense. But it was an interesting idea, or it clarified to me, because obviously like Marxists and communists have long talked about building the function of the party, the Communist Party, the Workers' Party. And it's quite easy to confuse that idea with the idea of a political party in a sort of contemporary, or in the language or understanding that you would have from sort of normative bourgeois politics. Whereas it's really enlivening and enlightening to me, Mike McNair's discussion of the party as a kind of like rising social force, a force which is aiming to either secede from society or radically overhaul it from a position of total opposition to the present state of political life, I guess. So yeah, that was the idea that I've come across recently, which has influenced me quite a lot. And as a kind of addendum to the last episode, I think it was an important feature.
Yeah, that kind of I think, yeah, it's interesting thinking about it like that, right? Because before this, I went back to our man, Paul Maddox's Anti-Bolshevik Communism, and just kind of re-went through the essay that we read on Council Communism about that. He's basically making an argument in that, right, that, like, we need to completely break with all things of the past, basically, and we need to, like, have something brand new. And he kind of doesn't really know what that brand new thing is to, like, other than just, like, agitate, right, to get us there. But, like, I don't know. That got me thinking a lot about, like, revolutionary strategy and this idea of, like, we know, like, McNair is putting forward an idea of, like, we know now strategically the best possible way to, like, he's putting forward ideas that are like the best possible way to get to communism. He doesn't really say what communism is, whereas like Paul Maddox kind of has the opposite problem where he's like, we need a society that's based on socially average labor time. How do we get there? I have no idea. But I think that like thinking about the party as McNair kind of puts it forward and thinking about what you've been saying, like, I think one thing that's kind of left me a little bit uncomfortable with all of that is like, well, how do we even get to like the point that McNair is talking about, right? Of like when we can build up this party. Because I think I'm fully on board with the ideas of like extreme democracy. And as you're saying, like the party form that takes power will kind of then wind up dictating society. But it's like, man, I don't know if we've really come across a like great answer for like, how do we even get to the point where we can build that party? You know what I mean? And like, I guess Draper kind of talked about it a little bit, but I guess it just gets into this problem of like, how can we concretely change like the abstract, if that makes sense? Like, what can we do concretely to like influence the working class on an emergent level and build this thing, this party, which is supposed to represent abstractly like the will of the working class? And I think that like, that's kind of why I went back in to read the Paul Maddox and I looked at a little bit more of the Draper and stuff, because like, yeah, I don't know. I have no idea. And I worry that it's just like something that like, okay, McNair kind of gives us these answers for what the party should look like and what it shouldn't look like. But like, goddamn, how do we even get to that point? Like we're at such a, like a lull, you know what I mean? I don't know.
I wonder from what you said, whether when you said the party represents the working class at an abstract level, I was wondering whether it actually doesn't do that. It sort of represents it at a concrete level in the sense that the party is actually the sort of like very direct expression of the working class and its interests. It's kind of not representative. It's almost direct. I don't know. Doesn't really answer your question, but it's a different version of it. I mean, there is an answer to your question, perhaps from the reasons that we did of Hal Draper and like the sort of Marxist center idea and the sort of like the alternative that he presents to the sect, but.
Yeah, but that's on such like an individual level because he just kind of wants to give you like, here's something you can do. Like it's almost like self-help, like giving people a bone. Like here's something you can do to not have a sect. But I think maybe we do need to think about the working class party as something abstract, as representing the working class on an abstract level, because like the abstract goal, right, is to have the working class all coming together, the working class movement like coalesce and get rid of wage labor and do socialism, right? So like the way that it goes about doing that is by acting on a concrete level of like helping the working class and organizing and, you know, like doing all of these things that we've come across. But like, I don't know. I think maybe that is kind of how I've started to think about the party is like this, the abstract, in theory, this would be great. The abstract like coalescence of working class energy, I guess, even though it doesn't actually, I don't know. I don't know. It's kind of like how it's kind of like how in the first chapter of Capital about how Marx basically says that like abstract labor is nothing more than kind of like all concrete labor combined, and socially average like working time is basically all of the concrete labor combined. That's kind of what the party is, right? It's like doing something on an emergent basis that you couldn't do on your own, that is like even the working classes, the sum of its parts couldn't really do on its own, but like has this abstract goal of socialism by doing concrete things, if that makes sense. And like the thing that's so frustrating about that, and the reason that we like it's so hard to get to the point that McNair is even talking about, is because like you have to act on an individual basis to get to that point. And it just feels like right now it's impossible to affect the emergent working class as a whole by just like doing what Draper says and just talking to people. You know what I mean? So I don't know if that makes sense. I don't know if I'm having like a bad reading of things, but it's frustrating, folks. Yeah.
But I mean, you can't make a contribution in the abstract, right? You can only make a concrete contribution.
Yeah.
And what are those contributions you can make? Either you find the movements and you join them because the interest is to spread socialist ideas within the workers' movements such that it exists. And then also, I guess it is to coalesce with or to unite with other Marxists. I mean, it's interesting that Mike McNair, I mean, that we kept coming back to the sort of the sub-heading of the book, right? Whatever it is, the problem of Marxist unity kind of thing. And Mike McNair's strategy in the mid-2000s was just to unite the Marxists kind of thing. But now we're in a different position where there are a lot more people who have a much more new, in sense of new to them, but also different version of socialism and Marxism which they're developing. And so we might be in a more interesting and lively time in the sense that there are nascent and emergent conscious socialist movements.
Yeah.
The degree to which they are united with the workers' movement is unclear to me, but it seems limited so far.
Well, I mean, the degree to even like the workers' movement is a movement for itself, if that makes sense. Like, I don't know. I feel like if a revolution were to break out right now, like, you would need institutions to protect people from their unions, if that makes sense. Like, unions are definitely not, like, the big unions aren't going to be these, like, progressive bastions of, like, socialist influence. They could be, I suppose, but, like, I don't know. It would take a lot for the Teamsters to be like, yeah, get rid of wage labor. You know what I mean? I don't know. I think that that's maybe kind of like why I went searching for answers in St. Paul Matic, because it's like, I don't know. I just love the way that like the councilists have this just like, fuck it, clean break with everything. Just clean break. Don't look to the past. We have to look to the future. What does that mean? I don't know, but here's like the end goal. And so like, I don't know. There's the bit in Anti-Bolshevik Communism where Paul Matic is basically like, none of these labor institutions, workers' fronts, anything like that now can be useful because they're all like so wrapped up in the stagnation and the decline of capitalism that like, I think, to bring it back to Mike McNair, what I'm taking from McNair now is that like, perhaps it isn't so good to think of the party that he's saying we should build as just like a return to Kautsky with some like nice little adjustments, a return to the strategy, and as something brand new. It needs to be this like abstract totality of the working class, and it needs to just be like fully no bullshit, like look to the future, not taking responsibility for any of this crap going on now. You know what I mean? I don't know. I always look to the councilists when I need help, when I'm in my darkest days.
Although it's interesting that from the Council Communists, we've had one of the more enlightening readings that we've done in the form of the fundamental principles of communist production and distribution. And in a lot of ways, that book is a clean break in some respects, but it also represents a relatively smooth transition.
Well, yeah.
Or at least like in terms of the familiarity of the economic principles of the new mode of production.
Yeah.
And an experiential level for the people who have to immediately live underneath it. There are deliberate aspects or deliberate efforts to represent the early stages of communism as being analogous to, although radically different from. From the bourgeois society that preceded it.
Yeah, I think that I'm pretty fully on board with that idea. I don't know how you get to that point. I don't know what that means, but it's like there was something, and we've talked about this before, that is so reminiscent of the Brenner thesis and of Ellen Meekson Wood on the origin of capitalism about this, like, you know, we don't need to rehash it, but like once peasant smallholders or whatever slowly started to be like exposed to the market and exposed to wage laborers and to rents as opposed to just like paying feudal dues or whatever. There's something very analogous about that. And that's really refreshing and it's cool, but it's also scary because it almost seems like it removes agency at a certain point. But yeah, I don't know. But I don't know. I suppose because you could also see it, to like bring it back to what you're saying about like party states and stuff. You could also see it if this was like a main central tenet of a party, of a communist party, and that party managed to take power. large if, but if it did, you could see it one where it's like, okay, we're just shifting to socially necessary like labor time, abstract labor. This all makes sense. You could see that, I suppose, happening. You could see people generally, like, once you're exposed to these like necessities of the economy or whatever, you could see a change happening.
I mean, I feel like well, maybe the group of international communists don't intend this, but there's an extent to which it does feel like the principles of labor time planning as an alternative to market direction of economic activity could be a feature of a Communist Party's minimum program.
Yeah, I think
I
so.
can see it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I'd like to see that. I'd like to see more people like putting forward actual like, because again, like, not to talk up the Council Communists too much, for the fact that they say nothing about how we get to the end. They say the end is like, no, the society needs to be based on abstract labor. It needs to be based on socially average labor time. Like, why haven't we seen a synthesis of those two things yet? Like, I don't know. Like, why haven't we seen a synthesis of like that end goal and like something like the CPGB's like minimum program, right? Because it's like, I don't know. I recently went on to like their website and I was like looking at what their minimum program or whatever is. And when it gets
draft
program, yes, draft minimum program. When it gets to the point of like actually talking about the economy and stuff, it basically is just like, anyway, like 7-hour work days. Yeah, nationalization and 7-hour work days. And it's like, yeah, I don't know. Maybe there's a reason that people don't really like pay these organizations much heed, because it's not actually offering a way out beyond like, we'll lessen your work day and we'll still have wage labor, but there will be more parks. You know what I mean? Like, I would really like to see, I suppose, a synthesis of the McNair, like, strategic thinking of how we actually build this party and how we get to this point with what the end goal actually looks like, right?
I mean, there are certainly other Marxists or pseudo-Marxists that have put forward different types of plans, I think.
Sure.
It's ironic that the plan that we've familiarized ourselves with most fully, that from the fundamental principles, is the most comprehensive one that we're familiar with, but it's presented by people who are reliant on a purely spontaneous political act to institute the most thorough plan.
Yeah.
And
they're
allergic to the type of political strategy that's put forward by Mike McNair and the kind of like Kautskyism plus strategy.
Yeah, it's very, I would like to know why that is, because like, one would have to wonder how much more people would listen to you if you actually had a drawn out plan for kind of like everything, you know what I mean? Like, here's our strategic plan for how we're gonna like build our party and how we're gonna take power, but also here's what we're working towards. Like, I feel like right now it's kind of like, I don't know, when you tell someone, yeah, we want to end wage labor, dude, and end capitalism, and they just kind of go like, well, what does that mean? And it's just like, you know what I mean? It's like, well, okay, I don't know.
Yeah, I feel like it's interesting. Like, if there were an emergent political force that represented that was the working class operating on a class independent basis, then it would almost be impossible for those people to deny the requirement for. But it's also be impossible for that party to be beginning to develop an alternate economic plan predicated purely on the fact that they are trying to be they have the notional idea that they need to separate as a class from society. Like, it would be hard to have a class independent outlook without automatically beginning to speculate on those questions, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I don't know, maybe answers to what is the plan for the early stages of communism, maybe they're emergent from the beginnings of, maybe they run tandem with the emergence of a class independent force that represents the working class.
Yeah.
But also, as you're right to say, there is great advantage in being able to go to people and be like, hey, this is what we want.
Yeah. Well, even just simply to be like, yeah, we want there to not be a rift between what you make and what you receive, right? Like, that is just the basic idea behind social planning. Right?
Yeah, I don't think any would. I don't know whether anyone Marxist or communist would not say.
Not say
Oh,
that,
maybe
but
like
if
an
you
intellect.
if you
maybe
don't
it's-
say anything beyond that, like
if you just like start with the intellectual critique of capitalism, but don't actually say how you intend to overcome it, maybe like the intellectual critique being you are not paid the full value of what you contribute to the production that you're involved in, and you should be.
Yeah.
But then, what is that should be?
Yeah, but then there's also a rift where it's like you're going out and you're saying that, and then it's like your end goal is to take power and lessen the burden of wage labor on everybody. It's like, okay, well, like, I don't know. I guess that's just like, I feel like once you have this plan of like, hey, we're going to plan based on, social labor time or whatever, like that answers a lot of the questions of McNair's, like, maybe like what happens when a party actually takes power. Because like if you do have a plan and you do kind of like you are propagating it and agitating and basically saying like creating a demand for this plan, right? Then I would imagine that would heighten the democratic pressure on a party to actually implement that program, if that makes sense. Yeah. And maybe help it just not ossify completely once it like takes power. I don't know. We'll see. Yeah, I don't know. Anything else on McNair? Like I said, I think the only thing that I've like has really left a bad feeling is just like how do we even get to that point? Because he almost makes it seem so easy to just be like, yeah, let's I don't know, let's just build this goddamn party, dude. And then that's where he begins his thinking, and then just kind of goes from there. But I don't know. As soon as someone can come up with an answer for actually like how we build a party, then let me know. But yeah, it's an unanswerable question.
Yeah. I think in most things you're generally more drawn to ask the pessimistic questions, and I'm just like ruthlessly optimistic in all things. And so,
well, it's a very practical question.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. No, it's not to your detriment. It's to my detriment that I won't ask those. I'm just like, oh yeah, this is okay. Yes, I'm on board.
Let's do it. Let's go.
110%. But I mean, I find it fine for me. It offers interesting answers.
Oh sure, yeah, 100%. Yeah. I mean, one would imagine that like no matter what your political orientation is, that at least like some of what McNair puts forward is going to be a necessity, even if you're just like a council communist, right? And you're trying to build councils, dude. Like, I don't know, you're going to need some strategic thinking. And like, again, not to keep bringing it back to the council list, but like you're going to need to look to the past and see what has worked and what hasn't, right? Because like, as much as I love the cathartic, just like, I hate the past sucks, look forward to the future of like a lot of the council lists, it's like, well, you're just going to wind up making the same mistakes if you don't at least learn from some of these organizational forums. So I guess that's all we can do. Just try and learn.
And there is something to be learned from that outlook in planning to engage with the existent workers' movement, like a heavy dose of skepticism as towards what the trade unions are.
Yeah.
I've always seen the appeal in the kind of left communist attitude toward the trade unions, which is these are thoroughly bourgeois institutions. They serve a function of negotiating the working classes' acquiescence to the interests of capitalism, kind of thing, and so therefore are thoroughly anti-revolutionary,
etc.
institutions.
Yeah.
So yeah, go into the workers' movement. But which and what workers' movement?
Exactly. Yeah. I suppose it's also just a bit of a lazy attitude too, to just be like, none of this stuff works. And only what I have in my mind works, because it's like, I don't know. Maybe what I just want to say with all of this is, who knows? Who knows what's actually going to happen? So like, maybe don't write everything off.
Yeah, I mean, I've been introduced to an idea recently, and I don't really recall where from. But it's affected my thinking a lot, which is to say that we have only the society that we live in to work with. That is the material.
It's a very good point.
Like, you can't wish to magically have other resources and material to work with, kind of thing.
Yeah.
People exist as they are. They are the subjects of the society in which they live. And that process of their transformation is the transformation of society to communism.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
But it opens broad questions about what are revolutionary subjects, what are their function, where are they, do they exist at all?
Yeah.
But that answers questions for another day.
For another day. Yeah. I don't know. Yeah. All right. Well, I guess, yeah, I think you were right to kind of want to talk a little bit more about McNair and stuff, because I think that strategically thinking is extremely important. And I don't know if we like really wringed all of the ideas out of it or not. But suffice it to say, I just think that like he seems to be the next logical step in a lot of the Draperist thought that we've come across of like concretely building a network around you. And he's basically saying like, okay, well, how can we take those concrete networks and in theory make something a little bit more abstract that's going to get us to where we want to go. And I think, just to reiterate, like those are ideas that it seems like no matter what your political bent, even if you're like an anarchist or something, like they're important, because just kind of going out there and agitating, dude, is cool, but like, yeah, you need to have an end goal. And I think that like his thinking combined with the end goal focused, ignore everything in between now and then thought of the councilists is one that I'm attracted to, and I like it quite a bit. So yeah.
Good.
I
feel like our podcast is never wring everything possible out.
Oh yeah, no, definitely, definitely not.
It's a kind of like 10 episodes later, we're still drawing on, oh, that's what that meant. This is what this was.
Yeah, it's like 5 minutes after we stop recording. It's like, fuck, that's what I wanted to say. Oh, right. Yeah.
So consider this video series the footnotes to the episode.
Yeah, addendums, exactly. All right. Yeah, well, there you go. I guess we'll be back at some point to do this again. I think we're trying to figure out how often we want to do this, because we do want to do it more, and how often we want to put out episodes. But that will be something, dear listener, that you'll have to wait and find out with us, because I have no idea. But yeah.
It's certainly an evolving work in progress. But we are, intending to play with our types of output and format. And so we'll see.
So we'll be as surprised as you are with.
But it will be great. As Jack says, it'll be excellent.
It'll be so good. We'll only be reading councilist thought from here on out. Okay. Anything else on McNair? I mean, I got the feeling we'll kind of be coming back to him like in perpetuity as our center evolves. Mm-hmm. But I think for now, that's pretty much all I got to say on him.
Yeah, I don't know. I've exhausted my...
I've exhausted my McNair thoughts. All right. Well, then, I guess we'll see everybody next time. And look forward to doing this with you again, Dan.
Yeah, it's been fun. Thanks for watching, everyone.
Thank you very much.